Hello, welcome to today's tutorial. Today we are going to be looking at error handling in Anypoint Studio. Over the past few sessions, we have been seeing how to define different scenarios using working with database, working with FTP, also working with file system. But today we are trying to make things more real. Like how do we deal with errors? Because from time to time, like if you're an experienced programmer, you would understand the try catch error blocks where you try a piece of code. If there's an error, you want to catch the error that's possible. In Mulesoft we can do that as well. We have different ways, different APIs for handling errors, and that's how we are going to be that's what we'll be focusing on today. So basically the it's important to be able to handle errors because first of all we can't guarantee the user's input, so we have to, and also the availability of different systems. So there are so many scenarios that can play out. So and I'm just going to be showing you how to actually catch for different how to check different errors, and also return back a useful information back to the user. So in Mulesoft we have the error API, which provides lots of it's majorly for categories, propagate error, error continue, raise error. So this allows us to respond to errors in different ways. Like in this scenario we'll be seeing the propagate error where it sends the error back to the source. So like if we use the propagate error, it allows us to transform a message, to create a message that will go back to the source system if the source is a database listener. This is very ideal because you want to be able to customize the message for the user. So today we'll be going to a very unique scenario today, and I'll explain it before I get ahead. So the scenario we're actually exploring today is a simple API for the same organization we post. So, but they want to be able to convert. So it's at the moment the organization is we are building the API for the organization based in the US. So they want to be able to convert amounts to they want to be able to convert amounts to euros. You can for the tutorial you can change it to any currency you feel comfortable with. So what we are just trying to do in this tutorial is change from dollars to euros, and we have some set of conditions. If the user supplies a value that is less than 5, that means we don't actually, as an organization we have a policy that we don't accept transactions that are less than $5. So basically we want to create an error that will send this back to the user. Oh, this amount is too small, or there's a problem with this error. The developer can now fine tune this error and present it in a better UI, or have do with work process this error further. So with this tool we have another error. We'll create another error handling scenario if the user calls this API but he doesn't supply any value. So we'll be using this API. It's a free API. You can check it out. Currency Converter API. It's free. That's what we'll be using. So all you just need to do is come to this website, free.currencyconverterapi.com. You can actually test this here. You can just do €1 to $1 to any currency. Let's look for euro. I click on convert. It gives us the amount. So we're just trying to find an API. This tutorial is going to be really packed because we won't just be focusing on APIs, but also we'll also be looking at a scenario we talked about last time. So we'll be able to understand different error scenarios and be able to work on them, and also provide better information for our users, or for the developers that will be receiving these endpoints. So first of all, if you want to use this API, it's free. Just click on get your free API, put in your email, and it sends a key to your email box. So currently I've done mine. This is what my API currently looks like. You just put in it sends you a key. You just I mean if a value, you just put it in your postman or in your browser and click on send. it tells you the value. So notice, because we are converting from USD to euro, there's always an underscore and tells you the rate. So if you decide to use a different currency, INR, or let's use INR, which is the Indian rupees, let's see what it gives us. It gives us a rate as well. So but because we are working with a scenario for euro, we'll just keep it this way. Yeah, and that's it. So basically in our course today, we'll be using this API in our code, I mean in our API flow, and also we'll just have different scenarios to check for errors. I'll be introducing you to a new set of API in the Anypoint Studio, which is called Validators. It helps us to validate a condition if it's logical. If yes, what error do we want to show to the user? So let's go ahead into our Anypoint Studio. So we are continuing. So click on new. We create a configuration flow. So what is this? We'll call this currency convert. So the first thing we want to do, we don't want to put in a listener because we'll be calling this listener here. Okay, so we configured the, so it takes some seconds. So we have the HTTP incoming. So what will be our base part? So let's still use currency. Or let's just do USD to euro. So that's our base part, and we would be using a post request. Okay, the next thing we want to do is let's just put a logger as we always do in the tutorial, just to make sure that we are getting a value for debugging purposes. In a production system, you might skip this step. So our API actually for today's course would be something similar to this. We are just going to have a simple API that is something similar to this. So that what this means is we are sending an amount 20 to the system and want the system to supply us back with this information. I mean, it should convert this amount from USD to euros. However, if we send this the API like this, we should return an error. That means that we are sending just an empty payload. We are sending an empty message. Also, if we send an amount less than $5, that was the two. We want scenario 2, amount too low, scenario 1, amount empty. So these are different scenarios that we are going to be exploring during this course. So when we have this, we want to be able to say, okay, the amount field is missing here, so we can customize the error that we send back to the developer. Also, if we send in a particular amount here and it's less than 5, less than 5, we want an error. So those are the scenarios we'll be exploring. So let's get started. So in that, what we want to see is just payload dot amount. Okay. And what the next step we want to do is we want to use a validator. So like I spoke to you about validators. Validators are they are they help us validate different elements or different values, different payloads, and it returns a boolean express. It returns a boolean expression. It returns a boolean expression, which can actually we can actually interpret into a message. So what we can just search for valid. We can search for validate. You can search for validate here. So you see validations. You actually see a lot of options here. Is it an IP? Is it a URL? Is it an email? Is it blank string or the rest? So for today's tutorial, I want to actually first check that it's the what the user is sending is not null. So I'm just going to put here. It means not null. In this module configure, you can actually leave it blank. You don't really need to do anything. You don't need to configure that. It's pretty easy. For the value, what you want to do here, I want to check whether the payload amount is not null. So what we do, we just put payload dot amount. So I used payload at amount. If it's not null, what should be the message? We want amount null. This should be fine. The next step for us should be we want to have a second validator. So like this covers the first scenario when the amount is null. Once you actually process this, so you can actually, it's like a little if block if the amount is going to be less than $5. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the second type of validator. I'm going to say if true. I put next. So yeah, I'm going to do something. I'm just going to choose in generals. I'm going to go for expression. Click on expression, and I'm going to write an expression saying if my payload dot amount is greater than 5, it should continue. However, if it's less than 5, what should it result in? It should call low amount, or just the amount too low. Okay, so that's it. We can actually put, so now if we test this scenario, I'm just going to save this. I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this using I'm going to call this using Postman. Like we know, API is designed as HTTP. If you have been following this series, we use the base part of we post, but currently for the listener, we called the listener here. Let's see what the value we put in. USD underscore euro. So just checking for Postman. Yeah, and the body we are going to supply a JSON, and we'll supply the first one, amount 20. Let's see what happens. Okay, okay, so I'm just going to rerun this project. I'm going to stop the project and rerun it. Stop project, and payload. However, if I'm going to make a new request, the incoming payload would wipe away the previous payload. So I just want to be able to store my current the amount coming from my present payload in a variable, then later I would use this to multiply with the incoming payload. So basically I'll just do it to be simple. So I'll just do USD amount USD amount is going to be what's currently in my payload. Just hold on. I'm just gonna payload. That's it. No. So all I'm just doing is assigning the value of my current amount that's coming from the listener's payload into this amount variable called USD amount. Okay. Then the next I want to make a request to this new API. I think I know it's getting a little bit complex, but just follow along. It's something simple. It's a simple API that you'd actually understanding this. It will be very useful for you on your very first project. So I want to make a request, and to want to call another API. So what we use is HTTP request. I'm going to use this. Yes. So we'll do a little bit of configuration. Click on new. So notice now, I go to Postman. What is the uh, what is the host? I should notice this is not a HTTP, it's a HTTPS, it's a secured server. So I'm going to just do this. I'll just copy only the domain name. I'll choose HTTPS. Put in a host here as this, and that'll be all here. I'm not putting in a port like I did with when we were working with HTTP. I put in localhost and the port, but however now I'm not doing this. So the next thing I want to do is to put in the right parameters for this configuration. I go to my API also. I go to my API. What was the next set of before the question mark? What's the next set of parts? So we have /API/v7/convert. So this is going to be my sub parts. Sorry, this is going to be my parts. Yes. And now just hold on. I'll just reduce this a little bit. I don't need it too big. So now if you look at our Postman, how our Postman is designed, we have query parameters. Q is this value, compact is this value, API key is this value. So I'm going to just copy all this and put in my program. To do that, I'm going to click on query parameters. I'm going to click on new. The first parameter I have is a Q parameter, and my Q, the value of my Q is this USD underscore euro. Yes. My next parameter is compact. Which the value is ultra. And my next parameter is API key, which my value is this. So I'll just put this in a double quotes. Okay, so my request is ready. As you can see here, we don't have any error. The next thing we want to do is we want to just transform the message back to the user. I think we just want to transform the message back to the user, and we want to send it out as a JSON file, a JSON payload. I just want to say okay, conversion in, in quotes. I'm going to be multiplying my payload from the request. That's going to be payload dots. Now remember, we are not putting any hash, hash any hash symbol before the payload, because we are actually working with data weave language. We're not working in MEL. We use the hash symbol when we are working in MEL. So, but currently, when we are working in this output pane, we will use the data weave language, so there's no hash. But it's pretty similar, but it's just that from time to time you just have to get familiar with the difference. So we use USD underscore euro, which, if you notice, that was the result that came from here. So what do we want to multiply it by? We want to actually multiply this value by, the variable we created here, and the variable we created is going to be stored in Vas is like it's global, so any variable that you create, it's actually stored in var. And to access the value, you just click on var, and it shows you the values that the variables that you have created within the program. So a little program is done, but we have not handled the error and catching the error. But let's just test this out and see what it gives us. Then we'll now actually go into creating. We're actually going to creating so working with catching the errors actually. So let's see this, and we'll actually make a postman call again. We're going to send in a value of 20. Okay, our server is still loading. Let's give it some time. Yeah. The server is loading. Give it some few minutes. Okay, so currently you can see our conversion is this. However, if we still send in a value that is still too small, it returns this amount too low. But however, we want to be able to create we want to be able to, this is not in a JSON format, we want to be able to create a new um a JSON payload that is meaningful to developers. Okay, whenever you see this error code, you should understand that it's coming from this particular error. So that's what we want to do now. So to be able to do it, we have to come now. We are going to use the error APIs. So actually, you can actually see error handler, error continue, error propagate, and raise error. So we are going to be working with error propagate. Error propagate sends a message back to the source, and our source is a listener here. So now notice when I click on drag this, I cannot put this anywhere on the canvas. You must drag it into the error handling pane. So when I put it, it creates it here. So now it's pretty simple. All you just want to do is whenever we encounter an error, we want to be able to display this out here. Different types of errors that you can actually have. So for example, I'm just going to show this. So to see the kind of errors that from this particular script that can come out from this particular script, when I click on this error propagates, I just hold on for this to show. So it asks me the types of error that can come out from this particular. So because Anypoint Studios it analyzes each of the elements individually and say, okay, what are the possible errors that can come out from this. So one way of doing this to find out the errors tied to a particular um, to a particular um, process, can be by actually executing it, and on the console you see the error log. When you make the you deliberately put in a wrong value, or deliberately put in create the scenario, for example a database down, or you're not connected to the network, you can actually execute it to see the kind of errors that can come in. But however, so when you just click on there, you see type, it shows you, because so currently we are working with HTTP request, so you can it shows you, oh, you can actually have a bad gateway, you can have a bad request, you can have a client security, you can have a connectivity issue, you can have forbidden. So it's pretty easy because it helps you understand, okay, where each error coming from. However, we are looking at focusing on two errors today: validation null and validation invalid boolean. These two are related to this because as you use the errors over time, you get you this is something you get to see more familiar, you get to see, and it gives you the experience. So basically, I know this based on experience. Also, and that trick I use to know where the errors could come from is on the validator. I come to error mapping, I click on this plus sign, it shows me the possible errors that can come out from this particular API. So on this validator, on this validator is true. When I click on error mapping, I click on this plus sign, I can see the possible errors that would come out from this. So it's similar for every process, for every API. You can come to error mapping for like bad requests. You come here, you can see the possible errors that can come out from here. So however, what do we want to do to now, we want to be okay whenever we come to this, whenever we have an error related to today we are just focusing on two types of errors that are related to wrong amounts, wrong low transaction amounts, or the transact amount is too small. We want to supply a message back to the developer in a particular format. So to do that, we are going to use the transform message. So what we want to do here, we just want to say, okay, whenever you come into this, because if we encounter an error, it comes into this block of code. So what do you want to do? So when you come here, all you just want to say, okay, simple. So what I on projects I've worked in with other, because sometimes you're integrating with different tools. So a simple scenario I've seen is the other developers want to know the source of this error. So I'm just going to put this as any points. I'll just use Mulesoft, and I will just say an error code. Error code is something you design. It's agreed within your team for which kind, for every kind of error you give an error code. So just do error code whenever it has to do with the amount you are sending. I would typically go with maybe like an error 800. So basically it enables other developers, oh, whenever they get this error, an error in the range of 800, they understand it's something that has to do with the amount. Either my amount is blank, the amount supplied is blank, or the amount supplied is less than $5. So I'm just going to complete this, I need to actually come back to the listener. I need to come back to the listener and come back to the responses, because by default you see there's by default it goes to this, it responds the same payload that was sent. That's fine. But if there's an error, what happens? It returns a plain text and it returns the error description, which does not what we want. What we want to happen is we want it to return the payload of this transform message. So we'll just write payload, and that's all. It's so pretty. So imagine, so assuming you were actually trying to write lots of code, you have taken a lot of time trying to write try and catch statements, but within a few minutes you have been able to create a simple API that consists of calling under H under get request, then also doing the calculations, and also being able to work with the error API. So I'm going to my API. I'm just going to be sure everything has executed properly. Okay, so I'm going to call my API. So first of all, we'll supply an amount of 29. So okay, we got an amount, that's fine. So what if we supply 1? So we can see it tells the developer, oh, this error is coming from MuleESB and the error code is 800. The developer understands, okay, this is what I he checks the agreed functional description document, specification document. He knows what error 800 means, and is able to troubleshoot the error. So this is how to actually capture and treat errors, error reporting in Mulesoft. It's quite interesting. You should play along with it, and also there's some homework you should try and follow along. Okay, thank you for this session. That's the end of this session.